Hi guys, Dan here again, just interjecting at the beginning to remind you that if you are going to watch along with me as I go through book 2 of Infinity Train, that you can actually support that show if you're in the US by going over to HBO Max and watching it there, based on a tweet we had from the creator Owen Dennis, who sort of implied that was going to play a big part in the show getting a renewal. So yeah, I just want to say that up front, and now, as per your regularly scheduled programming, here's past Dan talking about episode 1 from book 2. Hello and welcome to Rewind Review on Infinity Train. We're looking at book 2, Cracked Reflection, and episode 1, the Black Market Car. What an awesome episode. What a great way to start a second season. Intriguing. It does feel, more so than the previous season, that they designed, obviously, these episodes to really flow into each other. Or at least that's how it seems from this first one. I don't know if that runs through the whole season, or if it's just the first two and maybe the last two. But this really does feel like it's only half of the introductory story. That's not a criticism, though, because I assume these add together, because I assume they did what they did with the first season, which is, across 5 nights, air the 10 episodes 2 a night, Monday through Friday. Wonderful stuff. Like, nothing wrong with telling at least your first and your final story over across, and making use of the double episodes airing and taking advantage of the format it's likely to be screened in. I think there were times with Steven Universe that obviously they didn't know how it was going to be aired, and that negatively affected the show. But it seems like here there's some sort of, if not an actual contract, but like some sort of verbal agreement between Cartoon Network and the creator of the show to sort of, or he was just smart and kind of predicted they'd air it the same way this year, this season. I can't tell, actually. It could be either. It could be that Cartoon Network made some sort of agreement with Owen Dennis, or it could be that Owen Dennis saw how the first series was aired and decided to sort of structure the show with that in mind. I'll be interested to see if episodes 3 and 4 do the same thing, or 4 and 5 do the same thing. But a quick recap for those who don't remember, this first episode reintroduces us to the Mirror Tulip, who doesn't really have a name yet. She's on the run. She's changing her appearance. She's heading through the car. She has a little bit of a run-in with the Mirror Police, escapes, and finds it's a deer, apparently. Now, I called it a stag in the last one. I thought the big antlers were a stag. I don't know. Maybe that's a different thing altogether. I don't know. At some point, I'll Google it, but not right now. I probably should have Googled it before I hit record. And she meets this deer, gets given the name later, Alan Dracula. We then meet, I think his name is Jesse. He seems to be the new protagonist. Although in the last one I talked about Jesse, I kept referring to him as the new protagonist. But I think starting this with Mirror Tulip and focusing on her for the majority of this episode and her perspective, I guess I was wrong about her being one of the gang. I feel like she's the protagonist here. I feel like Jesse's kind of along for the ride. That may shift as the season goes on, but in the first episode, certainly. And one thought that did occur to me after I recorded the last one, but prior to seeing this next one, was one thing that I didn't say, because I was talking about the deer, the image of the deer, and how that could factor in. While it turns out my speculation was pretty close to what they've done, which is the idea of, the deer is one of the gang that's coming around with them. Although, again, I was referring to him as a stag in that piece. One thought that never occurred to me, and had done between watching the shorts and this, was the idea that the deer might be a villainous force. And I got really excited by that idea, completely off mic, unfortunately, because you heard me when my initial thought of, he'll be one of the gang. And then between the 2 episodes, between recording that and watching the first episode of book 2, I got really excited at the idea that this deer figure was going to be some sort of villainous force on the train, and he isn't, or he doesn't seem to be. He's a mysterious force. He's kind of the one it's not a perfect analogy, but he kind of fits the 1-1 role of like he's a bit of a mystery. Obviously he doesn't talk, so like you don't have to forcibly explain that his memory's all scrambled or he's just a bit weird like that. The way you do with you had to do with 1-1. So the great thing about Alan Dracula is being this sort of silent thing. He's going to get to be a sort of mystery to unravel as the series goes on, I assume. Or there is no mystery behind him, and he is just exactly what he is, which is just one of the creatures on the train that's bizarre. But I feel like their choice of putting loads of hints about Alan in the shorts, plus the weird powers they're giving him and the way the characters are reacting to it makes it feel like I'm supposed to be intrigued. I guess the second part of this is really going to settle whether he's a mystery box or not. He might be. I think that's a real distinct possibility. In terms of the story, sorry, just to clarify the way it ends, she's traveling, just as a recap, she meets the deer, she sort of befriends the deer, and it's in a wooded area, and there's no reflective surfaces, so she's kind of feeling safe there, and then accompanied by the deer. It seems like she's been there a couple of days, and then she wakes up and finds the deer is gone, and he's hanging out with this new guy, just Jesse, who is a passenger of the train in the traditional sense of he's a person from the outside world, our world arguably, with a number, presumably some sort of personal issue that he's not dealing with, that the train's going to help him deal with, and he's befriended the deer. He's named it Alan, and then while they're debating, does the deer belong to anyone, and that stuff, the deer seems to fall through the ground, quite literally, and the episode ends on that cliffhanger of like, what's going to happen with the deer? In fact, I was just trying to look at the image of the deer falling through, and it started playing sound. So little stuff to talk about. There's a few things. I mean, I feel, again, because this feels like the first part of like a 2-part story, I feel like I've not got to any of the real meat yet. This is a lot of introductory stuff, so there's not as much to talk about. The deer just literally falls through a big hole in the ground and then sort of tumbles down the into what looks like an even deeper layer of the woods. But he sort of tumbles down, not in like a way where his like limbs are moving. He's just this like really stiff object. Like he's just gone rigid and then fallen down, which is a really funny visual. So yeah, let's talk about some of the different bits. First thing, just to note, is she was running around with the spray paint as predicted. She even does go through a few cars that we saw in the train documentaries, or at least one. She definitely goes through the kaiju car and sprays that thing that we see sprayed in the kaiju car episode, so that means theoretically she went through there around the same time that 1-1 was making his train documentary video. She does change her appearance. She gives herself a sort of shaved head look. She tears off the arms of her shirt. She moves the mirror down her body onto down near her foot, so she can pull up her like boots or socks over it. She goes through like a dragon car, the kaiju car, where she like spray paints the reflective surfaces we talked about. There's like a jellyfish car. I'm trying to think what else I saw. I think that might be all of them. Oh no, there's like a dancing carrots car. They're having some sort of like, they're having a good time, and that's what leads her to the. She goes to a car that's like pink and fluffy and sort of like pleasant looking. It's got hearts and stuff everywhere. But there's another person in there, and it's someone else, not Jesse, that's also on the train to, I don't know, learn something about their life. And what I thought was really interesting was there's this video introduction from 1-1 that's very much present tense, as in, post book 1 tense, refers to being in charge of the train again. And I like this idea that Tulip's experience of getting on the train, not knowing how it worked and having to figure it out for herself, is actually kind of unique. Well, not unique to anyone who got on the train during the period in which it was not run by 1-1. Because this person gets like a little video introduction that's like, hey, this is how it works. You don't need to be confused, which is great because, like, from the audience's perspective, did we really want to see a member of, like, somebody having to go through that process again of just learning what the numbers are and stuff. Now we know would have been a mite frustrating, and it would have also been frustrating to have a new character show up who didn't know and have to go through, you know, the Mirror Tulip explaining the whole process. I suppose you could have had them meet, and then at the end of the episode, Tulip starts explaining, and the idea is it ends there, and you go like, oh, that's how they found it. But it's neater this way. Like, so when we meet Jesse, we know he already knows about the numbers because he's presumably seen the video. The video does raise one question though, for me, which is, you know, they make a reference to, like, you know, they're not liable for any accidents that might happen to you on the train. Can you get hurt or die on the train? Does the train prevent that somehow? It's just occurred to me that people may have... I mean, this is some pretty dangerous situations that Tulip went through on the train. And then presumably... Alright, when Tulip was on the train, it was not being run by 1-1. Maybe it's safer now. Maybe it's like... Maybe 1-1 has got it programmed to not be able to hurt you. But if that's the case, then where's the threat coming from this season? Other than for Mirror Tulip, who's still being hunted down by the Mirror Police. So I thought that was really interesting that they made a point of that. So yeah, we'll see. Do people get hurt on that train? I also liked in the introduction video we got little glimpses of Atticus and Randall as friends that you might meet along the way from 1-1. I thought that was pretty nice. So yeah, I like that we saw the kaiju car. I've talked about that already. I do like Mirror Tulip's new look, although it did occur to me that it might have actually been kind of cool if, although the opening intro sets up how much time has passed for her and shows her changing her look, it might have been cool if after the nearly being caught by the Mirror Police, she changed her look then, as like a response to that, like, oh, better adjust my appearance. Because from our perspective, she looks like she did at the end of when we last saw her, and then she immediately, it's like the first thing she does is change her appearance, suggesting that certainly at least took place pretty shortly after the last time we saw her. I guess it fills in the gap, but I kind of think it would have been neater to have it as a story moment in this. But then again, is it less powerful? Is it more powerful that she chose to change her appearance to make her less like Tulip? Not out of necessity, but out of a character choice. You know what? I've changed my mind. I'm leaning towards that being the right move. Who knew? The action sequence through the black market car, which... as a car, there's not really much to it, is there? It's a market. There's slug people. It's a little uninspired, which is a bit disappointing. But it's a reasonably cool visual for this sort of like noir-y sort of chase they do for the early portion of the episode, like the action beat before she finds Alan and hides. It does really set up that she's still being chased down. It reestablishes who they are. It also like reminds me that like in the last one their suits were damaged, which is why they couldn't move and follow her. But in this one, the suits only got mild damage, and they can actually travel into the next car, which makes them way more formidable, in my opinion. Because if they can just literally follow her, like she's really got to be able to vanish. Although they give up a little too easy, in my opinion. Like she could only have gone into that car. Like, why don't you turn back around? You'd keep moving through that car. You just would. Like, it seems insane not to. She's clearly hiding in that wood. She couldn't be anywhere else. Like, they give up a little too easily, in my opinion. But, you know. Which actually, I suppose it might have even been cooler if they couldn't move from car to car, but only had to re-show up in the next one. It would give them like a push each episode to get out of the car they're in and find a way out if they're being pursued. I do think Mirror Tulip's going to be the focus of this going forward. I thought her character stuff in this episode was really neat in the way they weaved it in, because Jesse, you know, being Jesse, he seems pretty carefree and fun and light. I suspect it's a defense mechanism, and he's got some like darker stuff going on. But what I think is really cool is like he's like, oh, I'm naming him Alan Dracula. She's like, who do you think you are to try and like name? You know, you shouldn't be giving him his name. He's got his own person. He deserves his own name. Very much echoing her thoughts on her own identity. You know, she has a real identity issue because she's technically born of someone else. Literally, she's someone else's reflection. So finding her own unique identity is going to be her challenge. And seeing her back up against the wall because he just gave this deer a name, which is totally innocent, and him just having a bit of fun. you know, it's a really neat way to reflect where she's at mentally. She also doesn't like the fact that he's trying to kind of claim ownership of the deer. You know, she's like, well, the deer's his own person, but she then sort of backtracks that and like, well, if he's friends with anyone, it's me. You know, so yeah, they have this little debate. They're kind of combative, which I kind of like because it's not like really combative. It's just like that sort of friendly, bantery combative, and that's like a good level for this. I think we don't want them to be. You know, you don't. It's a really fine line to walk. Me and my girlfriend talked about this a lot recently. We talked about Rick and Morty and how like they're constantly at each other's throats, those two characters. And then you look at something like Solar Opposites, which is Justin Roiland's other show that he's done, and the two characters, despite being very different, they do have a really believable friendship, and they get on, and like that's actually something really more enjoyable about watching those people go on adventures, even if the adventures aren't maybe as deep or as clever as some of the ones they do in Rick and Morty. It's like, you know, you're more likely to want to spend time with them, which is interesting. So yeah, I think there's some really good stuff here. Particularly, I like Jesse's personality. I like that he's sort of happy and carefree and a bit goofy, because I feel like we're gonna get a more serious side to whatever's going on with him later in the series. He puts the glasses on the deer. I guess that could be a reference to the cross-eyed duck with the glasses, like he'd already been through that car. Like Jesse traveled through the cross-eyed duck car prior to meeting Mira Tulip in this episode, because he likes putting them on animals, had put them on one of the ducks while one was filming his video. I guess that was the hint. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, let's see. I am surprised that Mira Tulip's going to kind of be the focus, or at least that's what they're hinting right now. I'll have to see the next one to be sure of that, but I feel like they've really established her as the protagonist, which, you know, I slowly came to the realization that she was going to be a big part of this series, particularly as I was watching the shorts. The opening scenes of this kind of blew my mind. I don't think I've put enough emphasis on that. Like, that really did melt my brain slightly, because I was just like, oh, okay, she's like the character. She's gonna be a big part of this going forward. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited on that. This might be her journey to getting a name for herself, because I can't keep calling her Mira Tulip, so she needs a name. So yeah, I knew she'd appear at least once this series, after watching series 1, and then after watching the train shots, I knew I've had a theory she might be part of the gang. It never crossed my mind she was going to be the protagonist. So that's really cool. And a really nice way to transition to the idea of a Tulip-less show. Like, you do a series with Tulip, you do a series with Mira Tulip, and then you do a series where maybe Mira Tulip just shows up once or twice. Or maybe you end her story this book, and then the third book is not any relation to Tulip at all. Which it'd be a shame to lose the voice. She's so good, and the character, but although the two characters are very different, obviously. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this going forward. I can't decide if I think it's a good idea that she's going to at some point bump into OG Tulip again, having gone on her journey, and like we can see how different they are. Or maybe that's what book 3 is. Who knows? Love that they made it all about her, though. Let's see. There are more. I don't have any theories on Alan Dracula yet. I don't know what they're doing with him. I think I should see the next episode to make any thoughts on that, because he could be an intentional mystery box, or it could be that I've just read into it too much, and the reality is he's just one of the weird things that exists on the train. She definitely calls him a deer, though, so I've got to do some research into why he's a deer, not a stag, and I'm sure there are 1,000 comments on the last one. I just thought if they had the big antlers, they were a stag, but I guess male deer maybe have the antlers too, but they're smaller, and a stag is a completely different creature, like a buck or something. I don't know. I'm showing my ignorance on animals. I do think that the way they've got Jesse sort of as a carefree is going to really be nice and juxtaposed against kind of a moody Mira Tulip. I think over the course of the episodes, we're going to see her become like more carefree and lighter, and learn to enjoy herself a bit more and not take everything quite so seriously. I think that's going to be quite fun to witness. I think she's going to learn as much from Jesse as Jesse's going to learn from her, and I do think she's going to be the catalyst for him dealing with whatever his issues are on the train. His number seemed quite low. You know what? I didn't note it down, but I remember noticing it was a pretty low number. What is it, 13 or something? Bear with me. I should have made a note of that. You can tell, I'm a little burnt out on doing these, so I might take a break after I've done this one and the next one, and then come back to it. I definitely don't think I'm going to be releasing these as close to the originals as I thought. Let's see. 32. So his number is very low, like, compared to where Tulip started. So either he's already been on quite a journey, or his number started low. Maybe his issue isn't quite as deep, and ingrained in his being. Or maybe he's been on the train for a little while. And maybe we'll get some stories of him in his early train days at some point in the series. But yeah, Alan Dracula's insane. Like the head stretching, the laser eyes. One of my favorite jokes of the episode, by the way, was the laser eye joke when he was like, "No, this can't be your deer. My deer has laser eyes." She's like, "Laser eyes, really?" And then it literally, like, his neck shoots over the laser spook out of its eyes. That is good. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, I'm in. Of course, I'm in. Like, at this point, we know I like the show, and the style of writing and the tone. Not as much to say on the first episode. As I said, it's kind of part one of a two-part story. I feel so it'll be really interesting to talk about the second one. So yeah, stick with it. Come back to us. I don't know what the release schedule for these will be. Obviously, potentially it's way in the future. So shrug. But maybe I'll add some sort of tag that explains that. But either way, thank you very much for listening. And come back, obviously, next time as I discuss what is that? I don't even have I don't even have the episode title up. How unprepared I was for this. What is the next one called? Cool. Okay, so I will speak to you next time when I'm discussing the family tree car. Oh no, you know what? Sorry. It's a very good episode. Like, I didn't actually review the episode and give my overall thoughts. This is a great episode. It's a really good setup with some really good jokes. Some really interesting ideas, but to really truly review it as a whole or as a piece, I'm gonna have to see the next one. So yeah, you go. So yes, now I've summarized, as I should have done originally. Again, burnout really kicking in. We'll see you next time as we discuss the family tree car.